It's a lot for.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Co-Creation Station. This is the podcast where we talk about spiritual magic, the law of attraction, the art of allowing, the mind, body, spirit connection, and how best to enjoy this mystical, miraculous, mysterious, crazy, sometimes confounding, but always incredible journey we call life. My name is Collin. I am a musician, teacher, and tarot oracle card reader located in beautiful, sunny North Hollywood, California.
Woo, woo. My name is Stephanie, and I am a transformational life coach, helping people shift away from negative thinking and helping them get what they want. And I am in sunny, partly cloudy San Diego, California.
Oh, it's one of the 8 days of the year that it's partly cloudy. Okay. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. If you're listening to the audio version on Spotify, the Apple Podcasts app, Overcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. And thank you so much for watching us. If you're watching us on the Co-Creation Station YouTube channel, if you feel called to like our show or like the video or subscribe or follow the podcast, or whatever the platform you're listening to us or watching us on allows you to do, we would be very grateful to you if you would do that. It helps us out a lot. We start our discussion here on each episode of Co-Creation Station from a different jumping off point. And today, our jumping off point is something I brought up last week with Stephanie, and I mentioned that I wanted to talk about it, which is the idea that's floating around our culture or society or whatever you want to say, that desire is bad and desire is wrong, and the way to become like a healthy, happy human being is to rid yourself of desire somehow.
I want to laugh.
Right?
Yeah, that's some crazy ass shit.
One of the things is, I think we work pretty hard and do a good job of not talking about specific religions or religious beliefs. And, the reason is I feel like the stuff that we talk about with regard to the law of attraction and the art of allowing, which is how to work with the law of attraction best in your favor, can work for you regardless of specifically how your belief of, whether there's a higher power or not and all that sort of stuff. Like, as long as you're willing to accept that the universe works a certain way, everything we talk about here, I think, can work for you. But I do think that although I've read some amount of Buddhist teachings, not a lot, but some, and I've gotten a tremendous amount out of it. And I know that Buddhism has helped a lot of people across the world. I feel like there's a concept in Buddhism which is all suffering comes from being attached to that which changes. And some people, not everyone, but some people derive from that the way to be happy, or the best way to get through life, is to divorce yourself from all human desire. Get yourself so comfortable with what is, get yourself such in a place of deep acceptance of not wanting to change anything that you actually don't want to change anything in your life or anyone else's life or anything else. And I feel like the place I quibble with that is desire is a natural human thing. Like, we are born with this innate biological desire to do more things and do more stuff. And certainly that can be taken too far. Workaholism is a real thing, and a lot of people in the United States suffer from it. I know in other countries as well. So you can overdo it. You can pursue desire to an unhealthy extent, but in reality, you can do that with anything. Like, moderation is usually a good idea in everything you do in life. Not going to extremes of not doing it at all, never, or doing it all the time, all the way, 100%. But I really feel like, in listening to Abraham, and I had gotten a lot of this thing. I think there's other places in our society and our culture where you're sort of like, there's these ideas that get passed around as beliefs. People say them, or they're said in the media, which is like, well, you should be grateful for what you have, and
which is true. Let's be thankful for what we have.
Yeah, but it's like there's a spin on that there, which is,
no, I get what you're
wrong.
saying.
Yeah, like, no, I mean, an important part of the art of allowing is being grateful for what you have, and looking around and really seeing the abundance that's in your life, no matter what's going on for you. If you're broke, you're unemployed, looking around and saying, yeah, but it's still a beautiful day outside. There's flowers.
Yeah, there's so much to be thankful for, no matter what's going on. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, I think there is this idea in the culture where it's like, there's that spin on that,
Oh
which
yeah.
is be grateful for what you have, and if you want more, you're greedy or you're ungrateful or you're, back in my home state of Maine, we say too big for your britches,
Yeah.
sort of meaning like
I haven't heard
you're,
that one in a long time.
yeah, like you're trying to be better than other people by wanting more, and you should
Mm,
sort of be down with everyone, where we're all just, the best of us are just at peace with everything that we have and we don't want anymore because,
it's
and
good enough.
specifically this gets weird around money beliefs, because I feel like there's this whole thing about, it connects to the thing about how all rich people are evil, wealth is a bad thing, all wealth corrupts anyone who touches it, so like there's a lot of political rhetoric where it's like, oh, well, all the rich people are evil people trying to run the world and oppress everyone else. And it's like, I do believe that there are very rich people in the United States and elsewhere in the world who are trying to oppress other people actively. I do believe that. But I also believe there's a lot of rich people who are really wonderful people who are trying to help other people and
Yeah.
donate a ton to charity and do really good things. So it's not the money that makes the bad.
Yeah, because money's
It's
just paper, it's energy.
yeah,
It's what people
not even paper
who
anymore.
have it. Yeah, true. It's it's the people who have it and what they do with
Yeah,
it and
right.
how they go about life
Yeah.
that affects. Yeah, so it's not the money itself, but it's the people with the
So my
money.
concern with when people start down this path of like, oh, okay, so if I have a desire and it's not fulfilled, that's the cause of suffering. So the solution is to get rid of my desire and be in this sort of perfectionist state of like, I'm so okay with how everything is as it is that I don't need anything else. I don't want anything else. Like, you're actually going straight up against your biological human nature, because your brain is going to come up, it's going to look around, and if you see a car you like, you're going to want some people are going to want that car. And if you then make it your mission, number one, to like shame yourself for having a desire, which I think is really unhealthy, but then also like go home and try to meditate until you don't want the car anymore,
Or
it's
even
like,
deny yourself it.
yeah, like that is not the way to health and happiness, like I don't think. And I understand there are people in the world that do that, that divorce themselves of all possessions, and they try to be like, just all I need is water and bread every day and whatever. But it's like, I just feel like it's going against human nature. Like,
I really like what Abraham says about that all things are spiritual, all material things are spiritual. The money is spiritual, love is spiritual, creativity is spiritual, everything is spiritual. It's manifested, it's spirit in manifestation.
Yeah. And I think there's, you don't have to, people, there's a lot of people who don't have any passion about like investing in the stock market, and that's 100% fine. Like, if you genuinely like never watch CNBC, anytime somebody gives you the Dow Jones Industrial for the day, you're like, I'm so bored right now. Like, that's fine. You don't, just because stocks exist, it doesn't mean you have to have a desire about them. But then to blame people who really love investing and who love buying stocks and following the market and following CNBC, and labeling them as like evil or wrong for having that preference and having that desire and having that, hobby or whatever you want to call it, like it's an interest that lights them up, it lights them on fire. Like, that's where I'm like, everybody, because the way I look at it, I mean, this is just my personal belief today, and it may change over time, it has, but is that, when we come into this world, we're basically like an artist, and we're creating this like really, extensive 4-dimensional work of art, which is our life. And it has all these different aspects to it, and it has all these experiences that we can have, and it has all these positive aspects that we can have on other people, or negative aspects that we can have on other people. But like,
and
we
there's
have
probably a combination of all of the above, right?
Yeah. I think most people's lives are some imperfect, blend of like, things working out, things not working out,
right.
Things made them happy, things that didn't. things they're proud of, things they're not so proud of, you know. But I mean, it really is, that's how I look at it. Is like it's this opportunity to make this incredible, you know, however long you live, you know, years long movie with all these different subplots and everything. And it can be an adventure, you know. And but the thing that would keep that driving is to make the most coolest movie that you can be in is desire, which is a natural thing that when you look around or when you look inside yourself, there's something that you want. And if it really resonates with you in your heart, I'm not talking about pursuing something like seeing that your neighbor has a fancy car and you thinking you have to have a fancy car just because your neighbor does. That's not, to me, that's not desire. To me, that's just jealousy and, you know, unresolved childhood trauma projected onto a car, basically. But like, if I see a car as I'm just out in a good mood and I'm like, you know what, that car is so cool. I would love to have that car. You know, I don't need 20 cars. I just like that one looks cool. I'd like to have it. And I think there's this thing where in our culture, in our society, like some people will, especially if that car, if they have a belief that that car is out of their reach, like that car is too expensive for me. No matter how much I like it, I'll never make enough money to buy something like that. So I'll never have it. So it's like, I'll just tell myself I'm wrong for wanting it so that I won't want it anymore. And like, that's ridiculous.
Yeah. Where
And
you're saying
it's really damaging
desire
yourself
sad.
because you're taking something that, you know, as we talk about with, I love how Abraham calls it, when you see something your heart really desires, there's a rocket of desire that comes out of your spirit or your heart or your soul. It goes out to the universe or higher power, whatever you think about that. And actually everything but you has already made it happen. Your only job at that point is to practice the art of allowing, to get yourself in alignment with it energetically, vibrationally, and you can bring that into your life. But there are times where people say, well, I can't afford it, so I'll train myself into not wanting it.
Or it's too nice. Oh, that's too nice. Or
Yeah.
what would people think of me if I had that?
Yeah.
Or that's not who I am. Or you know, there's so many different excuses that come up like after we have that desire. Oh, I want that. Yeah, but, and then fill in the blank. You know, for everyone, it's a little different. There's probably some common ones between a lot of us.
Yeah. The most significant like version of that I ever heard was I had a really good friend of mine growing up. His father, you know, was pretty well off, not massively wealthy, but pretty well off, you know, like he had a very comfortable living at what he did. And he decided to try flying. He wanted to learn how to fly a plane. And so he started taking lessons and he learned how to fly like a small engine plane. And once he got his license and everything, he was like flying around, you know, the part of the country that he lived in. He would fly up. At this point, my friend and I were in college, and we lived the college was maybe 4 hours away from where his father lived at home. And his father would actually fly the plane from the airport near where they lived up to the one near the college that we went to.
Oh, cool.
And would visit my friend, his son, and then get back in the plane and fly back home, you know?
Yes.
And he loved it. And every time I talked to my friend who was his son, you know, I was like, how's your dad liking the flying? He's like, oh my God, he loves it. Like he loves it. He's flying all over the place. He's flying friends, whatever.
Yeah.
And then there was a long time where I just hadn't, I was out of touch after college. You know, I felt I wasn't as in good touch with my friend anymore, but we would touch base periodically. And there was one time where we were both back in Maine, where we're both from. And I went over to pick him up to go out to dinner or something like that. So I went in the house, so he wasn't ready yet. And I saw his parents and his sister that I hadn't seen in a while. And he was off getting ready, and I was like in the kitchen with the parents and his sister, and it was a little awkward because I hadn't talked to him in a long time. And the thing that popped into my mind to ask was to ask his father how he was doing with the flying, because I hadn't heard an update in a few years. I don't remember how long it was. And I will just never forget this. It was the saddest thing on earth. Like I still to this day can't believe what he said, which is, and I don't remember his exact words, but he said something like, oh, he's like, I gave that up completely. I never fly anymore and I will never fly again. And I was like shocked. And I was like, oh my gosh, what happened? You know, I thought maybe he had a
Yeah.
near accident or,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
something. And he said, well, I just liked it too much. And again, I was like, even this is way before I've learned about
Oh,
Abraham or law of
yeah.
attraction,
Yeah.
but
Like
that
what?
just made
No
zero
sense.
sense to me.
Yeah.
And so I probably asked more questions than I normally would because I was just like so confused. I was like, what?
Yeah.
Like, and he was like, yeah. He's like, well, I just knew that, you know, if I kept flying, I'd keep liking it more and more, you know, and then eventually I'd have to buy my own plane. And then, you know, I'd have to pay for the care of the plane. And, you know,
Oh,
it'd become this big burden. And, you know, people would be asking me
wow.
for rides and everything. And I just was like, oh, well, I can see where this is going. I'm ending it right here and now.
Whoa. Wow.
Yeah.
What?
Like that.
That's wild.
I don't know what the right verb is. Like the one that's coming up for me is like horrified me. Like I was like physically uncomfortable, like
Yeah.
hearing that. And he said it so emphatically and so strongly. Like I knew, and again, I wasn't an expert in the art of allowing, like I sort of
Yeah.
am now, but like I knew I couldn't even, he was so, it was a belief. Like he was like, I did the right thing. I'm
Yeah.
so convinced I did the right thing by giving up this thing that I truly, truly love
Oh, how sad.
that I couldn't even say anything. And I was just like, oh,
Yeah.
okay. And my friend came out, and we went out to dinner. I was like, oh my God, I didn't even know what to say because it was like the
Yeah.
weirdest thing. But I think
Mm.
there aren't a lot of people in the world doing something that extreme. Like I think most people, but I talk to people all the time where, you know, we did the couple episodes about what did you like doing when you were a kid?
Yeah.
And I asked that a lot. And because it's a good conversation starter if you're meeting someone. And, you know, every now and then I also ask like, oh, are you still doing that? And the answer is almost always no. And I sometimes ask like, oh, why did you give it up? And they'll tell me, oh, well, I had kids, you know, or well, I got married and, you know, or well, I had to get a job and, you know,
Yeah.
and I'm like, none of those things are
Yeah, I know.
explanations
Yeah.
for giving up something you love.
They're
Like there's plenty of
excuses.
people who, you know, it drives me crazy because I've been working on being a professional musician for many, many years now. And every now and then I'll hear about, I'm trying to think, oh, like Jeff Daniels, the actor, who's like a amazing actor. You know, he's been in all these movies. He was in Speed. He was in The Newsroom on HBO. He's a brilliant actor. He's also like a phenomenal guitar player and musician, and he tours, you know. And I'm like, oh, his side job is like my lifelong dream, you know. But the thing is, I mean, that just proves to you that like there's more than enough room for one thing in your life. And I'm not trying to tell any parents out there, especially if you got young kids, that like, oh, you should just have plenty of free time and energy to do whatever you want. I'm not saying that, but it's like you can find 15 minutes a week to do anything. I don't care what your life is like.
Right.
You know what I mean? And if you really love something, it's like, why wouldn't you give yourself that 15 minutes? Like if you're not doing that, you're literally actively trying to do what I talked about at the beginning, which is you have a natural human desire. There's nothing wrong with it. You did it when you were younger and you loved it and you would love to do it now. Because here's the thing, nobody ever tells me I stopped having fun at it or I didn't like it anymore or I got into something else that was more fun. Nobody ever says that. If somebody said that, I'd be like, okay. But people always say there was something in my life that prevented me from doing it anymore, so I quit it.
Well, and I think it's really healthy. Like we know this mutual friend, we have this mutual friend who said, you know, 5 minutes a day.
Yeah.
I know people who have written books or, you know, completed a play or whatever it may be in 5 minutes a day. And I remember thinking, I have 5 minutes a day stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so, you know, you said 15 minutes a week, that's totally doable.
Yeah.
And I think it's like when parents, you know, speaking of parents, I think it's really healthy role model to, you know, continue to do those things you love. Maybe you can't do them as often because your time is, you know, put in other areas, but to continue to do those things. And I think men specifically versus women are much better at it of continuing to do those things that they enjoy. I've just seen
opinion,
it.
But
Because as women, we're more caregivers, I think. And so we just feel, and we put ourselves at the bottom of the list and take care of everybody else first. And I don't think men have that as much as we do. So I always think of them as they take much better care of themselves and allow themselves to do those things. But also I was thinking about your friend's father, who was saying, I was thinking, where did he get that from? Like, was that from one
Yeah.
of his parents?
Oh, I'm
Was
sure.
it one of his like where did he get that, where he just took it from the next step and then and like, oh, and saw it way down the road, like, oh, and then
Yeah.
was like, no, I can't go there. Like, I'm thinking, that was not him. That
That's
was not
not a
his
new
true
thought. Yeah.
self.
Yeah.
He captured that from someone else. Someone
Yeah.
dropped that seed, that belief, that thought into his brain, and then he,
Yeah.
like, and I think it's one of those things too, about it's not okay to have fun, it's not okay to play,
Yeah.
kind of. And so there was probably that aspect too, like, oh wow, this is like, I think a lot of us have that, oh, this is going too good, something's gonna happen, like,
Yeah.
you know.
Which I think I agree with you. I didn't initially, but now I do. I do agree with you. I think, at least in America, which is the only country I've ever lived in, I try not to talk about other countries because I don't know their culture very well. But here in America, I think that men are more encouraged to, in general, to pursue interests and to pursue goals than women, and women are more, conditioned to like raise a family and take care of their older parents and all this kind of stuff. However, I do think that the thing that boys and men get is that there's like things that men ought to be focusing on, and there's things that, and therefore you ought to give up things that are not that when you become a man.
Yeah.
Like, I have a friend who loves Legos and always have. I mean, he really loves toys in general, but he's just always had a passion for playing with toys, but specifically with Legos. He's just been obsessed with Legos. And I remember most of the time he was in my life, my social circle was college, grad school. So my social circle was like 20 somethings. And I remember he had a girlfriend who he's now happily married to, I'm happy to say, who really supported his love of toys and his love of Legos. But there was kind of this, like, and we all loved this guy. Like, nobody thought he was a jerk or anything like that. He was a really good natured guy. But there was this kind of like, I'm gonna say like gossip, but sometimes it wasn't even necessary to have the gossip. You could just get the vibe from, discussing about it. It made people uncomfortable that he was 23 and he spent a lot of time building things with Legos. Like, that made people really uncomfortable. And I think there was this idea, and I was in a few conversations where his girlfriend at the time was talking to other women and I was there. And, it wasn't directly stated, but I felt like there's a lot of like between the lines at her, which is, when are you going to get your man to grow up and be a man?
Yeah.
And what I'm grateful for is those two stuck it out long enough to get to 2021, where now, people are making millions playing video games. There's a game show about how good you can get building something with Legos. I saw that the other day. Like, now it's like, nerd culture and toys and things like that are like, oh, it's okay. Like, somehow the culture has changed. But I think, man, good for him for sticking with that, because there was a lot of pressure on him to like take that healthy desire, which clearly was a healthy desire. I mean, he went to like the national Lego competition that they have every year, and he got like third place building the third most amazing thing in the time or whatever. And it's like, good for him for not taking that passion, that normal desire, and repressing it because, something in the media or some parent or some peer, says, you really ought to give up the Legos. And
I always admire people who have enough strength and
to be who they are,
confidence and passion within themselves, that they don't allow that to come in and affect them in a way that they just drop it and like, okay, you're right, or I should be, and then they just keep going their merry way happily. And then because the only one it really affects when we drop stuff like that is ourselves. Like, they may, whoever it is saying that may be happy in the moment, but they are on to like who knows what else in their life. We're all self-centered. We're all just thinking about ourselves for the most part. But I admire that, because I have not always been that person to be like I am now. Like, I love in my phone is like, what was it, something like, I don't remember exactly, but something to the effect of like, what other people think of me is none of my business. It was
Hmm.
like, I'm gonna do my own thing because it makes me happy and feel good.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing that I mean, it's a great point, and the thing about that that just gets me is that I mean, you can't watch the news, you can't read stuff on the internet without being aware, because there's articles about this all the time. There's news stories about this all the time about what do people regret when they're very aged and maybe in hospice and on their way to dying. Like, what are the top regrets? Like, I see this
Mm.
in like you know it's in women's magazines like Cosmopolitan. It's in like People. They're always saying like, oh, look, what we talk to old people in nursing homes and find out what their regrets are. So I mean, it's not like this is a big secret. And the two biggest regrets are I didn't spend enough time with the people that were important to me, and I didn't do enough of the things I really wanted to do.
Mm.
And the cause being I cared too much about. Usually, I cared too much about what other people or society or somebody thought of me, and
Yeah.
I let that stop me from spending more time with people I love and spending times doing things I really enjoyed. And I think we talk a lot about the lizard brain, about how the brain is set up for us to survive. And I think one of the challenges with that, one of the many, is that when we're before that point, anytime between, teenage years and, our deathbed, we can get very caught up in this like survival mode of like, yeah, I'm going to put loved ones to the side because I need to get ahead at work and make more money, not for my true desire, but just like, to survive. That's how I'm going to prove I'm surviving in the world. Or, any number of combinations of that whole equation. And again, it's like we're putting off what we really want. And again, I'm not saying if you need to work a full-time job to pay your mortgage and pay your bills, God bless you. Most of us do. That's fine. But very few of us have a job that's 168 hours a week, which is the total number of hours in a week. Most of us work. I mean, the most people work is like 70, 80, extreme workaholism is like 70, 80 hours a week, but even then, you got to sleep and eat, but again, you can find 15 minutes anywhere. And I just think there's this idea where, and it goes back to that story of my friend's father of like, that somehow having fun without a purpose, and it's not even just not having a purpose, like having fun without accomplishing something like
An outcome.
basically to impress your parents from your childhood, for most of us, is a waste of time. It's a waste of time. Like when we see, people enjoying themselves and we're not enjoying ourselves at that level, somebody's taking vacations and we don't take vacations, we're kind of like, oh, well, it's okay because I'm doing what's important. I'm working.
Mm.
It's like on your deathbed, man, I swear to God, the people going on vacation are going to be way happier that they went on vacation and they saw beautiful sights and relaxed and, played tennis and swam and all this stuff. And yeah, so I mean, I think that it's not that and I didn't mean to say that every Buddhist, thinks that desire is a bad thing, but I think there's multiple roots in our society to this belief that, there's some sort of external standard for what we ought to be doing, and we should follow that instead of our heart.
And I
And I
think
think
it comes from a lot of like just disappointment. Like, don't reach for that thing or don't want that thing,
absolutely,
because if you don't
absolutely,
get it, then you'll be disappointed. So don't go for it, then you won't be disappointed. But then we're disappointed because we don't have it.
yeah,
And what I was saying, what comes up in my reminder once a month is I don't require anyone's approval.
yeah,
And I was, I was out somewhere on Friday night and I was near a college, and I saw a lot of 20 something men and women, but specifically the women. I was remembering back what I was like in my 20s, and I was like, man, I cared a lot about how people felt. I was
oh yeah,
insecure. And I just thought, man, I do not like, yeah, I would like that youth, but I just remember how I felt. I was very insecure, low self-esteem. And it's like, I,
one
I
of the
don't,
things,
I don't
yeah,
want that.
one of
I'm
the things
so different today from then.
yeah, one of the things I really appreciate, one of the many things I appreciate about Gary Vaynerchuk, who goes by Gary V,
Yeah.
who's a big inspiration for me, and I think is largely responsible for this podcast happening. Because one of his things is like, go make a podcast. But one of the things he's been really harping on lately, I don't follow him as loyally as I used to because I'm spending more time on things I want to do, which is good. But one of the things he's been harping on a lot lately, I have seen, is exactly what you're talking about. The people in their 20s and early 30s are so hard on themselves about A, having everything figured out, B, having their whole life together, like having married to the person you wanted to live with for the rest of your life and having a dream job and like killing it at your dream job and all this sort of stuff. And his whole thing that he talks about on that is that's ridiculous. Like your 20s should be this period of exploration and adventure and seeing what, as, he says tasting, which I think lines up with Abraham's thing a lot. Is like, go find out what sets your heart on fire. Go find out what makes your heart sing, and then you can spend the rest of your life doing those things that you love. But if you spend your 20s and early 30s, like, oh my God, I got to get married. And oh my God, I got to have kids. And oh my God, and I'm not.
And
I'm
if you want that, that's
anti-marriage.
great, man. If you want that, you know that you want that, and you go for it. How sweet is that? But if you don't know, it's okay too.
Yeah, but that's not how I felt in my 20s. It's not how you felt in your 20s. It's not what Gary's seeing in 20-year-olds, And literally, I work with a lot of young people who are fresh out of college in my teaching work that I do. And, one of the things that's so funny to me is like, if we ever get around to age, they're far more upset about how old they are than I am. I'm 51 and they're 23, 24. And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. You're half my age. Why are you upset about getting old? And their response is, it's always this comparative thing. And it's based on like other people's opinions, which is, well, by the time I was 23, I wanted to fill in the blank. And it's really like a bunch of results oriented things that would be that you can tell parents or peers at a party or something that like, you're okay, you've got all your shit together, like you're not a failure, whatever. But it's like I just feel like that comes at the expense of like finding out, who are you? What do you want to do? So many, oh my gosh, like I've lived in California for a while. I'm talking to so many people that graduated from Berkeley and Stanford because they're up in the Bay Area here.
Yeah.
And they're great schools. And it's great if you get to go there. But I've talked to so many Berkeley and Stanford graduates who were like, went pre-med or they went pre-law or they went, they were going to be an engineer or whatever. And they either quit school entirely or switched their major sophomore, junior year, or became an engineer, became a doctor, and then either were quit or are miserable. And I talked to them, I'm like, well, why did you major in that? Or and they were like, oh, my parents, like from day one, my parents were just like, you're going to be a doctor.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, man, it's really hard because you can find videos and stuff online of, be who you really are. If your parents are in your face all day, every day saying you're going to be a doctor, it's really, our brains, it's hard to overcome that.
Yeah.
But
I like that when I have a desire, to think like, oh, it's there, like it's meant to be, like God, that's what God would have me. It's if it's something that I really want, like, oh, that desire was put there by spirit, like it's okay, I can have that, I can be it, do it, have it, whatever it is. Like it's not a bad thing, it's there for me to experience it, whatever it is. And so if nothing else from us, our conversation today is like, if there's something that you want to be, do, or have, we're here to say yes. Yes. And just know that if you allow it, it will come about. We don't know how or when, but sometimes it'll take longer than others. But absolutely, yes. If it's something that makes your heart sing, by all means, cherish it and trust that it will come about however it's supposed to be, and that it's okay for you to be, do, or have it. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think I would totally agree with you. I would just put one step in front of that, which is if I have a desire, what I try to do, and I'm not saying I do it perfectly every time, but what I try to do is this a true desire for me? Is this something that like when I think about it, and it's not necessarily that everything's going to make me happy, but it's like something that feels right to me. Like it feels like it's in alignment with who I am, my values, who I want to be, what I want to do in the world. Like, is it something like that? Or is this a desire that is coming from my own people pleasing habit? And it's really somebody else's desire that I'm saying I should want. So that's the important thing, is before I get to allowing myself to, be like, okay, and now I'm going to let myself receive whatever this, the result of this desire is. I try to check with myself and go, is this something I really want? Or is this something that, I saw it on a show that some expert said everybody should fill in the blank, and it doesn't resonate with me, but I just like took that, and my brain's like, oh, then I guess we have to, because I can go after things that, and I can even allow things in that I like, and then I get it and I'm like, oh, I actually didn't want this. Like I've actually gotten a lot of things actually.
But that's like, okay too, right?
Well, it's a part of the learning.
Yeah, because then like, oh yeah.
And it's contrast, which we talked about.
Yeah, exactly. Earlier. Exactly. Yeah. Nothing's wrong or bad. It's all part of the adventure that you mentioned earlier. I really think life is really an adventure with all different chapters and subplots and everything else. Yeah.
Well, this is a really good discussion. Thank you for discussing this topic with me. I was really like jonesing to talk about it because it's been on my mind for a long time.
Cool.
And I'm glad we kind of went through it there. So we hope you enjoyed this episode as well. Thank you so much for listening to us. If you're listening to the audio version, thank you so much for watching us. If you're watching us on the Co-Creation Station YouTube channel. Stephanie, if people want to get in touch with you, how can they do that?
www.powerinjoy, POWERINJOY.com.
And you can follow me or send me a message on Instagram. I'm at Collin, COLLIN _ Daniels, DANIELS _ Worster, WORSTER. Thank you so much for listening or watching, and we will see you next time on Co-Creation Station. Bye, everybody.
Bye.